Yo, who are you, bro? Tell
Yo,
the
what up,
people.
man? What up, man? My name is Noah. I am a music producer and a film composer. Big fan of Ben, big fan of his work, Ben SOKO. He's one of the best engineers and glad to be working with him. Glad to call him a friend. Yeah, man.
Appreciate you,
It's good
brother.
to be on here.
Thank you, bro. Yo, get
Yeah.
into it, man. So talk to me. How you been producing? Kind of go into some of like the background stuff of how you got into this, where you started, and like where you are now.
Yeah, man. I've been producing for about 3 years now. I started out really just being an instrumentalist. Um, I grew up playing all different kinds of instruments, pretty much all the core instruments on a stage, playing in bands and just kind of messing around with different styles of music. I grew up in a very musical household. My dad was a singer songwriter for many years. So I grew older. I started teaching myself different instruments. Took a couple of lessons here and there, but mainly just kind of grew on my own and decided to start branching out. And as I got older, I I realized that I really liked film music. And so as I started getting to know all these different genres, I started diving into film music in and of itself and learning that you can make music for movies and you can also make music for other things. And they could be two separate things, but they can also be one thing. And so that just kind of like sparked a passion for me to be able to start writing like cinematic music, if that makes sense. Um, and so as I started writing cinematic music, I was like, well, wait a second. I can still make any kind of music I want and it can fit in a movie, basically. And so being a film composer is really fun because um, there's not a specific genre you have to stick to. Whereas a lot of music producers, normally they have a certain genre that they stick to. That's like they stick to their guns. That's their corner, you know. But for me personally, I kind of just grew up with all these different genres. And so it kind of fits with film music because you can kind of just work with whatever is needed for the film. And so it also works with producing music because now I have a background in all these various different kinds of music. So it's turned out really well. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Have you? Was there any point in which you decide to go into producing for artists as opposed to doing cinematic stuff like for movies and trailers?
So there wasn't a point when I specifically decided to do that instead. It was just kind of a moment when I realized that I can do anything with music, just do any kind of music. I always just kind of thought you could only do one or the other because you can't be good at several different kinds of music. But then I realized you kind of have to have a hand in every pot, if that makes sense. You have to be aware of different genres and different backgrounds and cultures when it comes to music. And so being aware of that and taking an inspiration from all those is really important. And so at one point, I just realized that I could do both and do them both well and enjoy them both. So I do like, obviously, I like scoring for movies, but I really also like working with artists. It's much more up close and personal. With movies, you're telling a story, but when you're working with artists, you're telling a story in a completely different way with lyrics. And so I think it was just kind of a gradual decision um, to say I want to work with, media, but also with independent artists and work on their specific project as well.
But yeah, fair enough. So you'd say that, and I know you mentioned this before, that getting into the whole production side of things of making music for trailers and movies gave you the fundamentals to then branch over into doing productions for artists and to expand yourself in other creative genres and whatnot, correct?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of inspiration, a lot of different uh, backgrounds that you need to have I guess the right word would be a broad uh, vocabulary of music to be able to write for a film. And so when you're working with an artist, a lot of times when an artist comes to you with a project, they're not asking for a specific sound from something that a filmmaker needs or something like that. Like filmmakers need very specific things, but an artist tells their story through lyrics, so it's a little bit different. But with an artist, when it comes to a specific track, it's a little less focused on the sounds and more of the emotion, I feel like. And
I agree.
so yeah, and so I mean, as an engineer, like the emotion does come from the sound. And so there's different like variables, different things that you can do to kind of like emphasize certain things that the artist sees in their head. But I do like to compare them often because I don't know if film composers and producers compare each other. I would hope not. But what I mean by compare is there's a lot of similarities, I guess you could say. There's a lot of common ground just because we're all musicians, you know. And so when you're working with artists, you have to find that common ground with them as well, because even though they may not be a producer, they have the idea in your head, and you have to be able to hear that idea in your head and translate that on paper or in your recording studio on your instruments, however you record your music. And it's the same way with film. You have to be able to translate the idea that the director or the producer or the prospective filmmakers want, and be able to put that down on paper and have musicians play that and put that in the movie. So in a way, they're both similar because you have an idea that they come to you with, and you as a musician have to be able to translate that into something that they would be able to put in their project.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that way you can kind of work together in the collaborative process to actually bring it to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's ongoing from there.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say there's any one particular genre you like to do, or you kind of just takes what comes your way and you kind of just make the most out of it and you kind of have an appreciation for like a wide genre of music?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty broad question. As far as one genre, I've never had a favorite genre, to be honest. I know a lot of producers do, and it's honestly that's not a bad move to have a specific corner that you stick by, you stay in that area, because if you're good at something, you should brush up on that and keep doing that. That's what a lot of people will tell you, is to keep doing what you're good at. But I've learned that it's good to take inspiration from every corner of music, because if you don't have an appreciation for everything, it still is going to be a little bit more difficult to do what you're good at, because you're going to be soloed out on one narrow viewpoint. And so me personally, I wouldn't say I have a favorite genre. Um, my background is in cinematics, but I've been learning to branch out and be able to not just have an appreciation for every genre of music, but also be able to make it. It is not easy. It is not easy to be able to just have an artist say, "Hey, can you make a mix of?" Had a client one time that came to me, and he needed a mix of East Asian sounds mixed with trap with a slight hint of R&B, which is not impossible to do. But when stuff like that happens, it kind of reminds me of a film composing gig, because there's a lot of specific sounds that they want. So that just kind of ties back into what I was saying about not sticking to a certain genre, because if I had only stuck with a certain genre, I would not have been able to take that gig. So yeah, I think just having an appreciation for everything is definitely important when it comes to being a producer.
I agree. I think there's this big misconception, and I get this too a lot, where an artist will ask me, they're like, "Hey, what type of genre do you usually do, or do you only do
Yeah.
one genre?" And it's like, when you get into this industry, when you expose yourself to a variety of genres, you
Mm-hmm.
can be informed about all of them, and then you're able to produce or mix almost all of them. You know what I mean? Or have a general idea. Sure, if there's somebody that only does Afro or dancehall, they might know a thing or two that you may not, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
expose yourself to every single genre, you can have a general idea of how to create it, and then you dial it in from there with your artist. And who knows,
Yeah.
your artist might end up liking your version better than if that other person who just specifically focuses on that genre, if they created it, they may not even like their version. So I think exposing yourself to many genres only helps you in the long run. And it
Mm-hmm.
helps you actually be able to work on different music. And that way you can suit your skills and your way of production and mixing to the artist and what they're looking for specifically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I've heard it before. I'm sure everybody's heard this at one point, that you as an artist are not technically original, right? Your ideas may be original, but your inspiration was never original. So your creativity always stems from what you are inspired from and how you started and where your background comes from. Musically, socially, culturally, all those things tie into your art form, right? And so whenever you include the different sectors, the different cultures, the different inspirations that you have in your life when it comes to making music, making beats, mixing, mastering, anything to do with music, they all have a benefit. And there are certain things that someone will say, "I need this instrument, or I need this sound, or I'm not really sure what it is, but can you look it up for me? Mr. Producer, can you go find this sound that I've been looking for? I just can't." They'll try to hum it. They'll try to make a noise. They'll send me a voice memo or whatever. And sometimes it's kind of sad, man. I'm like, that's this instrument. That's an Indian sitar, or that's a ukulele, dog, or that's a banjo. Like different sounds that people sometimes, it's just the education just isn't there. The cultural appropriation just isn't there anymore. And so I feel like that is something that I personally, as a composer, but also as a producer, want to maintain is just being culturally educated when it comes to music and historically as well. There's a lot of instruments that they may not make anymore, but they still have. Someone could say, I need this sound. I was working on a gig recently. I'm not allowed to go too much into it, but it's for a trailer of sorts. And my client needed something more ancient sounding, but he wasn't really sure what the instrument was called. And so we had to browse through different cultures and different genres of music to find it. When we finally found it, he was like, oh, it's this one. I was like, well, I could have told you that a minute ago. It was this specific instrument, you know? So not everybody knows all the different instruments around the world, but I think just being more appropriated to different different kinds of music helps for sure. And that's actually what they were looking for the whole time. They just didn't know it because they sit there and listen to one genre of music most of their life, you know? So
I mean, I there's this joke I always make where it's like half our job is just translating what the artist wants. Where whether it be production or like, oh, what's that one instrument that goes ding 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 ding
yeah,
ding ding, and you're like,
yeah,
this instrument? They're like, oh yeah, yeah, that's the one. Or even in mixing,
yeah,
they're like, oh, like,
yeah.
eh, can you make me sound like I'm underwater and like that I'm kind of like screaming with like a rougher tone? And I'm like, is it this or this?
Well, it's
And
a pass
it's
filter.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like, okay, I got you, right? And like,
yeah,
it's funny, right? I don't blame them. I
yeah,
mean, at the end of the day, their job is to focus on the artistry and to focus on, what they do best, which a lot of time is performing, writing their lyrics, coming through with the emotion and tone that we're looking for, and then we take care of the rest, right? Because then we just kind of stick to, you know, what we're best at doing, which is, bringing the song to life, whether it be through production or mixing and mastering,
yeah,
and just kind of, always have our own areas, which I think is the beautiful thing about music is that, yes,
mhm,
are there certain things that may get in the way and sometimes things get lost in translation? Sure. But at the end of the day, we still, assuming the artist is willing to be patient and collaborate, we all end up coming to a common consensus of what to do next. And we
yeah.
push in a general direction and we just get it done and we make it amazing, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I
our
think
job,
this,
man.
I think
Yeah.
we, oh, absolutely. I think this actually lead perfectly into one of your other questions that you had was, um, what do you enjoy most about being a producer?
Man, if I had to pick one thing,
That doesn't have to be one
honestly,
thing, but hey,
okay. All right,
just like get
I'll
into
give
it,
you
yo. Hey, we're here now. Just get into it.
yeah, man. I'll give you my top three reasons. Um, my first reason is the probably the number one thing that I love most about just producing, making music in general is just the creative aspect. So that's a very broad term, but what I mean by the creative aspect is actually just coming up with the ideas in my head and either writing them down or sketching them on a piano or whatever it is. The first stages are always the most fun for me, because once you have that creative idea, and you as an artist also know what I'm talking about as an engineer, like you have this idea in your head, but then once you start making it, sometimes you can start going on a rabbit trail
Oh yeah.
and doing other things. It just happens. It happens to all of us. So for me, one of the most satisfying things is just the initial having an idea in your head. And then like when I'm working my other job, like I'll be walking around doing what I'm doing and I'll have these ideas for different things. And it's just so fun to be able to like put them together and start thinking about, okay, if this works with this, how is this going to work? And how does that translate to a film or in producing? How does it translate with a project with an artist? And so that's probably my favorite part is just the beginning stages of the creative process. Um, but to be honest, especially as a producer, I cherish the connections that I have. I cherish the people that I work with. I really try to take care of them as best I can. And so that's just blossomed for me because when people start trusting you, you know how it is, man.
Oh
When
yeah.
people
Building
start trusting
relationships.
you, yeah, you build that relationship, you establish a solid connection, and you let them know that you're someone that is not just cool to work with, but someone that's not going to mess things up, not going to screw them over in the future. And also speaking of the future, that's something that you want to try to establish is that you're not just good to work with for this session, but also other things, other ideas, like encourage the ideas they have. If they bring something up, like when you're working with a client, they're like, I had this one idea, but I'm not really sure, ask them about it, talk to them about it. Well, hey, tell me about your idea. What you got, and that kind of just brings out this creativity in them that they may not have even seen at first. So that's just a whole nother aspect of making music. I mean, there's every piece of the puzzle involves community, involves being involved with everybody that's a part of the project. There's no one single part that's, even if you're sitting in a room all day, which is half of what I do, even if I can't go see that person, for lack of better words, in person, I'm at least on a call with them or DMing them or
Look at us,
calling
man.
them. Look at us right now. I mean, it's exactly what we're doing. This is a perfect example. So that's another part that I really enjoy. It's just the community, man. Just reaching out to the clients, talking to them, and giving them advice. I think part of the journey is helping other people find their passion, yes, but do the best that they can do, right? Because there's no competition. It's not about that. It's about making sure that they're happy with their product, but also helping them blossom and encouraging them, supporting them. Because you do build friendships. I mean, look at us, man. We started out, where did we meet? It was on,
Yo,
was it Vamper?
yeah, I think it was Vamper.
Yeah, it
Shout out
was
to Vamper
Vamper.
real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Vamper.
Yeah.
Um,
We can definitely get into to that more later, but I do want to ask a follow-up
yeah,
question because it kind of leads into this next one that I wrote down.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm just trying to, okay. What would your advice be for future producers, for people coming up in the producing game?
So let me think.
And
Actually,
you
that's a
can
good
take this in any
question.
direction you want, business, creative, like really anything that comes to your mind right
Yeah.
now when I say that. Because I know it's pretty vague and broad.
Hmm. I would say just be yourself. There's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of expectations that come with any kind of project when it comes to content creation, music, media, film, anything. Um, and so being yourself consistently is not easy to do because you're getting pulled in all different directions. So, I don't want this to collide with what I was saying earlier because I do truly mean it. When you're working on something with music, you should always be aware of different kinds of music. You should always have an appreciation for different genres so that you're not narrow minded, right? But you do still need to remain yourself. And so if you're confident in something and you're confident in your abilities, which you should be naturally, hold on to that, and do what you do best. Don't try to be someone else. That never works out. In fact, that was one of the hardest lessons I learned. Um, I auditioned for, or I guess not auditioned, but I did like how would you call it? It's kind of different in the film world. More like an interview, like a basic job interview. And I sent the client my work, and I was talking to them, and we were going through the process of communicating about the job itself. And, uh, it was kind of hard to take the advice, but their advice for me was they said I was talented, but they did not like the fact that I sounded so much like a particular composer, like a particular artist or producer. It sounded too much like that. That was years ago. That was when I was first learning how to kind of be confident in myself. And there's also a pressure. Everybody says you got to find your own sound. Ah, I hate that.
I don't even know what that means, yo.
Yeah,
Like,
like what is that? Your own sound? Like, is there like one little beep boop? All right,
yeah.
that's my sound. I think it's really just overall being confident in you, as a content creator, as a creator in general, and not trying to stretch yourself out too thin and sound like 16 different people at once. Sure, you have your inspirations, but don't try to sound like your inspirations. You know
Like use those as ideas to fuel
exactly,
I guess your creative process to then try and find your own sound.
exactly.
Don't
Take
try and
elements,
emulate. Just use that as a way to kind of get the creative juices flowing, so you
right?
can go in there and experiment and play around and kind of see what direction you want to take things in.
Exactly, and that actually leads into something I was going to say too. Is when you take elements from different people, something that really helped me was find out what it is that they did best, right? And this could be a whole other conversation for later too.
Mhm.
But find out what it is that they did best, whether it was through not just the music aspects, but the business too, socially, like how they landed certain jobs, how they communicated with certain people and their artists and their connections, and just everything about them that whatever it is, your inspiration, your mentor, find out what it is that they did best and apply that to yourself. Don't do exactly what they did, but figure out why it worked for them, and then go to the next person, figure out why it worked for them, and eventually you'll start to think about the things that aren't working for you, and you'll turn those into situations that do work.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to put on here is figure out why it worked, not what they did that worked.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Think of the
Mm-hmm.
concepts, the core fundamentals and principles as to why that may have happened
Mm-hmm.
and worked out best for them. And
Mm-hmm.
then through that journey, you might figure out what's best for you, and then you're just gonna kind of do your own thing and take off in the creative process, right?
Exactly.
And then you're gonna find your own sound. And when I say sound, I mean it's like everyone has their own way of doing things. And if anything, I think you're developing your own taste, not necessarily sound, which I guess some
Mhm.
people might think of them as the same, but I just think that like all of us have our own way of producing or mixing and
Mhm.
mastering. And we may kind of lean in a certain direction when we tend to do our mixes or our productions.
Yeah.
Um, and that just becomes who we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
It happens naturally
oh,
for
for
sure.
sure. Two
Yeah.
more questions because I know we're slowly running out of time here, and this is kind of an exciting question. Just to kind of think about the future. What are you
Sure.
looking forward to? What's next?
Man.
What's in the horizons right now? For whether it be
Yeah.
for our collaboration or your own self journey in production, just kind of give me
Mhm.
something.
I'm looking forward to shaving off the time that keeps me from making music. I'm looking forward to decreasing that because that is the one thing that keeps me from truly unleashing um, the potential that I would hope my business would have if I had all the time in the world to do it. Because everybody, if they had all that time, they would be so much better than they in their current state. Like your best version of yourself is if you can give all of yourself to a specific task or a specific thing, right? So pretty much just finding a way to make it full time. I'm almost there. We're getting there, and that's a personal thing for every artist or producer or content creators. They got to find a way to find more time to do it, basically. So that would be the probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is just setting that goal for myself and keep working consistently on finding a way to do it full time. You know,
The transition into us being able to make money from music and being able to just do
absolutely,
this on a day to day.
absolutely,
I love it, man. I mean, that's the way it should. I think we're all kind of aiming towards that, right?
yeah,
It'll be
yeah, we are,
exciting.
man.
Definitely, that's definitely something to look forward to. The day that we get to, you and I both get to quit our jobs and be like, bro,
Yeah,
we're doing this shit full time, man.
yeah,
And we
man.
dedicate our all and just do more content like this for you guys and to just keep on
Yeah.
making great music and serving our artists and our community and our people and just continue to
Mhm.
just be creative and do the thing we love doing most and get and just gain that fulfillment and euphoric feelings from it. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
yeah, no, I definitely couldn't agree more. And lastly, because obviously, you know, people know that you and I know each other. And
Mhm.
obviously, some people know that you and I work with one another. So, this is where you can kind of get into the story about how we met and a little bit about our collaboration now and going forward.
Yeah, actually, I'll let you share that.
You want me to get into it? Oh, shit.
You got
Um,
this one.
so, yeah, so how we originally met, or as far as I remember, so please kind of correct me if I miss out any
Yeah,
details here.
I got you.
So I believe we originally connected on Vamper. I sent you a message, and for anybody that knows me, I go hard on that app. I'm telling you guys
Yeah,
right now, if you want to get people to work with you, go on Vamper. It's a cheat
it's a
sheet.
resource.
It works for
Yep.
me. It's been able to build my clientele and my artist base, so that now I can actually reinvest all the money from what I do now back into all the amazing gear I have, and to have the ability to connect with so many amazing people with just great talent that just want to do big things. And like I'm beyond grateful for all my artists. You guys know who you are. I love you guys. You guys are all incredible. I couldn't be happier with that. And I'm sure Noah feels the same way.
Yes,
In
sir.
terms of how we met very similarly. So we connected on Vamper. Um, I think at the time you still lived out in you're still out in Oklahoma, right? And I was still
Yes,
down
I
here in
am.
Florida.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because I moved down here last year, May. For those of you that don't know, I moved down from Toronto. I live here now. Um, so obviously we're some time apart, different time zones, everything, right?
Yep.
And you know, we connected on Vamper and we started talking. And I think you introduced yourself as a producer. You were doing film composing, and I just remember that you were just inquiring about working together. I forgot exactly what you said or what your intentions were, but I just know there was something about us collaborating and working together on something. And it's funny because I remember I remember we talked on Vamper for a little bit. Noah added me on Instagram, DM'd me on there, and he also sent me an email, which
Oh
nobody
yeah.
ever does. I still remember this clearly. Noah has ever sent me an email before. I mean, unless it's those spam emails, but I've never once gotten an email from somebody I connected on Instagram with because I was almost
Yeah.
like, yo, who sends emails? But it was cool
Yeah.
because you stood out, right? And I saw the notification pop up. I saw your DM, and it was smart because I mean he didn't know if I was gonna like really reply like that. Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, I got back to him on DM. We chopped it up for a little bit. I think we eventually got on call,
Mhm.
and then we kind of just spoke about what we did. You know, I came to realize that Noah was just a sick guy, good vibes, good energy, had great
Yeah, man.
music.
Yeah.
I still remember because I think we connected when I was in the Dominican actually, and then I ended up coming back
Yeah.
home. We ended up setting up
Hmm.
a call, and we kind of just went over the music. And definitely both our situations were a little bit different back in January. This is back in January, guys. So almost 12 months ago. And yeah, we kind of just chopped it up and we were still looking for an opportunity to work together. I was gonna, him and I were gonna collaborate so that I could kind of mix and master some of his
Mhm.
productions and we were talking about opportunity and, we always kept in touch. We just never did anything in that moment. And, we'd check in maybe about like once a month or so and kind of just see how we're doing,
Mhm.
hop on call, just maintain this connection. Cause
Lots of voice memos.
oh,
Yeah.
lots of voicemails back and forth. And I think
Yeah,
Noah
man.
and I both knew that, we were both good energy. We both had a similar vision to do big things within music. And we were both willing to hop on opportunities as it presented itself. And so I think that's why Noah and I kind of kept really close ties. And we just knew we were both hardworking and we were both kind of getting good at what we were doing, what we specialized in, right? And then months go by, month after month, still copying on at least, one phone call a month. And then still waiting for that day where a certain opportunity would pop up where him and I would finally connect on something and start working together.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
man.
just real quick though, that kind of just shows you the importance of maintaining your relationships with people you have within this industry. Because we are in a
Mhm.
people-based industry where if you don't keep up with certain connections, they may fall off. And so just even checking in once a month, once every other month, once every few months, just something where you guys are still in contact
Yeah.
is always super important. And so that's what Noah and I did. And when two people with good energy and the same vision are connected, you want to flourish that relationship. That hopefully one day it can come to fruition where you guys can do some work together. So then
Yeah.
we eventually had this one artist, which we recently just finished a song.
Yeah.
Shout out to our artist Sammy. She's incredible.
Sammy, man.
I'm sure you guys will hopefully see that song soon. That was actually the first song we did together, and Noah did the production for it. He killed it. I mixed and mastered it. I just finished the song today, and that just shows you that even if you connected with someone 10, 11, 12 months ago,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you're never going to work together. It just means your time isn't then. It isn't, at that moment. It might be later on. And so it took Noah and I 11 months for us to finally work together. We finally did it. And now this is a lifetime friendship, business relationship, and everything. So
Yeah,
I'm going
man.
to end it there because the Zoom is about to end. But I appreciate
Yeah.
you guys for listening. Noah, do you have any final words?
I would just say, man, just have fun making music. It's so easy to get caught up in all the specifics and really not enjoy yourself. But if you can find a way to just be yourself and enjoy doing it and cherish the people that you're doing it with, value that, hold on to that. You'll have a great time.
Guys, I appreciate you. All love.